I think that's great. We should get started now. Thanks for joining us, everyone. My name's Robin Kingham-Edwards. I'm part of the MAST team here at Aristotle, and here with Danielle, who's part of the MAST team as well. We're going to go through a few ideas of how to implement the MAST and IDEAL framework in action. We are also our team also apply the MAST and IDEAL processes, and we have a lot of actionable ways of doing things. Today we're just going to go through a few of the ways to apply the IDEAL processes. And the reason for trying to turn the framework into actual practice is that we all invest a whole lot of time in developing our frameworks, our standards, our governance processes, but translating that theory into day-to-day practice is where things often stall. And with metadata, the metadata registry, the Aristotle Metadata Registry, we find that it's a way of starting to progress those, that hard work and turning all that methodology and theory into a bit of a few results, so to speak. Just a few housekeeping notes. Today is being recorded, the webinar is being recorded, and we'll be posting it on YouTube. Please use the Q&A or chat box for any questions. If you're having any technical issues, let us know in the chat box as well, or just leave the event and try and return as well. That might help. And all attendees are muted so that we can minimise the background noise. And feel free to enter your poll answers as well. So let's get started. So the overall topics here are what are MAST and IDEAL, how we're going to apply the frameworks within the registry, and what the direct benefits are for your team. And just a little bit on that, we know that good metadata management looks what it looks like in principle. It's clear definitions, agreed standards, a governance process, and some which allows shared understanding across teams. But without the practical mechanism to operationalise it, metadata often remains locked in documents, inconsistently applied, or interpreted differently and across different business areas. And this is where the metadata registry becomes critical, because it's an operational tool that makes the metadata usable, discoverable, and governable in real time. And what this means in practice, it's a shift from describing metadata to actually using it. And the metadata registry bridges the gap between strategy and execution. I'll just get, I'm assuming everyone can hear me and you've got all good, you can see my screen and everything. Just let us know if you can't. So, perfect, thank you. So just before we look at how to use the registry using IDEAL, I won't spend too much time on this. Here's a quick recap of what MAST and IDEAL actually is. It's just 2 slides, so we'll just go through these pretty quickly. So the MAST methodology is a methodology to reinforce that metadata is a team sport. It's like Agile methodology is for project management. The MAST methodology is designed to provide consistent steps for data governance. It focuses on continuous activities to build capability and improve how users document data and metadata. So I won't read through all of those things, but this is what the a high-level MAST methodology is. And we do like to sort of check back when we're doing specific projects on where we are within this process, and in more detail is the IDEAL process. So moving on to IDEAL, the important thing to remember here is that documentation isn't something we do once, it's continual. Anytime data sets are updated, any new legislation, for example, may come into place and require us to collect different data or broaden the scope of a data set, all of this documentation should be coming into this process in the metadata registry. And this is why we've developed the IDEAL framework, which describes continuous operational methodology to help everyone understand that their role is what it needs, understand their role in this whole process. So it's in a circular shape because there really isn't a specific starting or ending. And actually, some of the activities that you do can cover a couple of these sections. So each step focuses on building positive outcomes. In the inventory phase, we focus on documenting high-level information about data sets to record business knowledge and improve discovery. In the document phase, we dive deeper to record technical and business information about each field within data to improve the interpretation of it. In the endorsement phase, metadata is shared with data governance teams who help with quality control and publication of records to aid discovery. The audit phase is when we focus on harmonising business terms to build consistency by proposing mergers, reuse, superseding of items. All those sorts of activities are a key part of the audit phase. And in the final leadership phase, everyone is encouraged to examine the process by identifying improvements, promoting quality content and encouraging new users to be involved. So that's just the broad ideas of MAST and IDEAL. Turning the behaviour into actions is what we're kind of here for today. And I'll just go through a few things that we're going to explain to you. And investigate and inventory is where most organisations begin, even though it is sort of doesn't matter where you start, but it is quite commonly where you begin. And at this stage, the focus is on capturing what already exists. Metadata is often scattered across spreadsheet documents and systems rather than building from scratch. A registry allows us to bring the content through a bulk import, which is what we'll show you today. And here we're taking a structured spreadsheet, loading it into the registry, preserving existing knowledge while starting to standardise it. And this is an important step. It lowers the barrier to entry. It acknowledges that metadata maturity doesn't start from zero, it starts from what you already have. And from here we move to simply collecting metadata and improving on it. And the documentation is about updating your metadata. Once it's in the registry, you can document it and refine it. It's where definitions are clarified, descriptions are expanded, and metadata becomes structured, linked, and easier to understand. The step is about improving quality and consistency and ensuring what's captured and it's meaningful and usable. It also creates the foundation for reuse. So teams aren't redefining the same concepts in different ways. They've got a resource where they can come to and see what has already been documented and if it's reusable by their team or not. So the review and endorse section is after you've documented it, we move on to endorsement, and all the metadata isn't equal. So you've got metadata that's more ready for sharing more broadly than just within teams. And this endorsement allows you to formally review a process, let subject matter experts give you feedback, and get data stewards to validate the definitions and data elements. And once the items become endorsed, they're at a higher level than others perhaps. Those items are an authoritative source of giving the users more confidence in what they're working with has been agreed and it's reliable. So that's a key shift from having available metadata to making it trusted. So auditing is editing and identifying similarities between items. You can use discussions and things like that to get the audit process more refined, and you can maintain quality over time. And as metadata grows, so does the risk of duplication and inconsistency. So it's a continual process, as we've already mentioned. And the leadership is quite key to all of this, but the metadata registry allows you to incorporate all of that effort and the editing and using the leadership and the strategies that you have applied to your data stewardship by applying the registration statuses that are already existing in the registry. And that's where we will move on to some demos from Danielle here. And I will go on mute and let.
All right, hi everyone. I am going to share my screen real quick. Please give me a thumbs up when you can see the window. All right, looks like we are good to go. So as Robin mentioned, we here at Aristotle use the IDEAL framework, which is just a way of organizing complex projects and initiatives into actionable, manageable steps. We developed it to be used in data governance. And we do have the Aristotle Metadata Registry, but the framework itself is platform agnostic. So that means whether or not you have an Aristotle registry, you can begin applying this framework. So that said, I am going to show the steps in an Aristotle registry today, which should just help give you an idea of how you can implement the IDEAL framework in your day-to-day business activities. So as Robin mentioned, we like to represent IDEAL as a circle or a pizza with different slices. And as with a pizza, the best place to start is with the slice that is closest to you. So what that usually looks like in practice is an inventory. Depending on the size of your organization and the level of data governance you may or may not already have, you may have possibly an internal documentation or a spreadsheet that just records all your data assets. We encourage you to start with a spreadsheet, and that because it can be easily imported into the metadata registry. So I'm going to show how that works right now. If you have a metadata registry, you may be familiar. This is a user dashboard. From here, I will go to the toolbox section and click on this bulk creator. Because we have limited time today, I have already prepared the spreadsheet. And so I'll just be showing the import section. So what we've done is we'll be recording everything as a data set, which is the highest level as far as data goes. And then things can be broken down into pieces from there. I've created a work group, which is sort of like can represent a business area or just a staging area in the registry where you can do your initial import. I've already downloaded the template and filled it out. So what I'm going to do now is upload it. I will select it and it does a quick check. And as you can see, it's giving me a preview. I have created 20 fake data sets here that we are just using for demonstration purposes. We can do a review, all looks good. And then I will click on this save button. So it is now importing that spreadsheet into the registry. And you're basically done at this point with the inventory step. So I can show you that by going back to my dashboard we are working in the Aristotle Community Stewardship Organization at this point, where we have today's work group, where I just added everything. So we've imported metadata items. I did have a test in there already. And you can see everything is here immediately, all in one central location. I will take a quick moment here to remind everyone that if you have any questions throughout today's webinar, please feel free to drop them in the chat. All right, so we have our inventory. The next step in IDEAL is documentation. And what that looks like is just giving these data assets that we've recorded a deeper description. You can check for common terms, create linkages between data assets, and that's all with the intention of making it easier to find and understand your data assets. Because really, what a metadata registry is for is to help people access the actual data that exists in the real world so they can do their jobs. What that looks like in the registry here is, again, because we're on limited time, I have created a sort of pre-populated distribution. In the hierarchy of metadata items, if we're starting at the top with a data set, which could be anything from a data warehouse down to like a dashboard, things like that. The next level is a distribution, which is sort of a branch off of a data set. So in this case, I've recorded a distribution called, which we're for demonstration purposes calling employee territories. We can see that the source data from that comes from a data set called employees as well as a data set called employee data. If we continue scrolling down, we have the data elements defined here. We have both their technical characteristics as well as their business information. And so this really enriches the metadata. And that's largely the part of the documentation step. Moving on to the next step in IDEAL is E, which is for endorsing. So we do have a specific area for this in an Aristotle registry called a registration authority. What it represents is a quality standard, or perhaps if you have compliance or policies within your organization and you want to be able to check your metadata records against this quality, you can have a designated team and area for doing that. So what I'm going to do here is return to our list of items that we imported in the inventory step. And I'm just picking one at random. So what in practice, what this would look like is perhaps I'm the data steward or the data owner responsible for this data. I believe it has been recorded to the standards set out by my organization. And so now what I want to do is submit it for review. So that will be under this Actions tab. I'll select the Submit for Review. I will give it a title that would make sense within my organization. And we will, thank you for putting a question in. I'll just pause here real quick so we can address the question because this is pertinent to the inventory and documentation step. The question is, are all the metadata fields populated through a discovery or are they manually maintained? How are the hierarchies of distribution be maintained? Can they be checked in an automated way? Detection of duplicates and optimization, FinOps related activities. We do have a lot here. So
yes,
Robin, if you want to tackle that one.
sure. Did everyone hear me okay? So we've got, yeah, like Daniel said, there's quite a lot here. So through a discovery, like as you could see, we had a pre-populated spreadsheet that would have been in reality mapped from some existing arrangement. So you've got, in many cases, you've got some content that you want to start with, and they will be mapped to our spreadsheet. So our spreadsheet is a standard one that you can download for any metadata item type. So it takes a little bit of preparation to get your heads around what the spreadsheet. So it is an actual spreadsheet. You can export the blank document and then start filling it in. In many cases, that's a thing that our clients do. They download it, they decide what they're wanting to get their data stewards to populate in many cases, and then get that agreement, they'll fill it in, and then once that has been mapped to the standard that we've applied here, that gets uploaded. So it is in the format that's acceptable by Aristotle, but it's just a spreadsheet that can be used outside of the registry entirely. Is that the question? Hierarchies. So we've got, I've forgotten how many metadata item types there are, but there are many. and we get and we get a good. There's rarely an option that we can't cover. So if we've got some scenarios that you've got some metadata, some data sets that you're wanting to describe, or tables of data, there's a place, there's a metadata item in the registry that we can use, and we've got the applicable spreadsheet to use and upload using that. But yeah, there's definitely a mapping exercise up front. Yeah.
Yeah, and I do want to add in, if you have large databases or something where it would absolutely not make sense to enter the information manually, we can either go through a scanning process, or if you're able to provide an export, it can be mapped over. We have a separate tool called Activate, which is for those really large bulk imports that include technical and business information.
Yeah.
Yep.
Duplicate detection. Also, the registry does have a few little wizards when you start creating content. It does detect once you start going and editing, which I should probably move on to, but there are some wizards that scan the registry for the content that's in there and says there's another thing by the same name, or there's this definition, and it's got a match, a percentage of matching that it pops up as you start creating and editing the content.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thanks for that. Yep. Please just keep putting your questions in, because we're limited on time. Also, yeah.
Not yet.
Not yet. The AI agent is something we're looking into. We want to make sure it's done right, and not just added in for the sake of adding AI into the product. So yes, we want to, it would assist with those things like duplicate detection or suggesting maybe relevant linkages. But yes, that is in the process.
Yeah, that is.
Understood. All right, so we'll jump back into the endorsement step here real quick. This is just as a refresher. We have a data asset. We feel like it's ready to be reviewed. So I've selected it. I'm just filling in the relevant information to connect it to the work group that it came from. Today, these different registration authorities could represent different policies or organizational initiatives that you want to check your data record against. We're going to pick the Quality Assurance Committee today just for demonstration. These other fields can be filled out. These target registration states can also be defined to mean different things within your organization. We are not going to touch any of that today because, as Robin mentioned, the Aristotle registry is a massive tool with lots of possibilities, and we want to just kind of keep the scope narrow for the demo today. So I'm just going to be registering this, or attempting to register this one data set. I'll create this review. So this review section does tie into that automated checks question, where I've just submitted one today, but you can do it in bulk. And then you can also come over here to the validation section, where you can have technical or business rules defined, and then it will check each metadata item against those rules. So you can see here that there are 5 checks. It's passing 4 of the 5 checks, but there's one that is failing. So it's looking for a contact point, personal or group email, as it's defined. So what you would do for that is come back to this conversation. This is as well tying into the leadership section, where you'll have different business areas, different levels are able to communicate with each other and say, for example, please update the contact information. I'll add that comment. It will notify the data owner, and there can be a dialogue here. And when everything is passing, you would simply approve it as recorded and close the review. So now if we view this item, we can see in the info box over here, it's been elevated to the recorded status. That is relevant because during the audit step, which is next in IDEAL, what we want to be doing is looking through our data asset records and checking for accuracy, consistency, relevance, and compliance. So if we know within our organization that if something is recorded at the recorded status, then that is complying with the policies that we've set forth, then we know that this data asset record is up to date. We can also see when it was last updated, and if it needs a review there. Similar to the question earlier about checking for duplication. So, for example, if this possibly was last year's data set or a previous year's data set, and I, again, representing a data owner, am coming in and I'd like to record the current one, so this year's. So what I will do is then clone this item. I'm choosing to do this because it's in line with the audit step. It is consistent. Using the correct terms will provide accuracy as well. So by cloning it, you can see that it adds the word clone to the title. And as I delete that, you can see here that it is showing it is a 100% similarity match with a pre-existing data set. So if I had gone in to record this for the first time, I would see that there's already a duplicate there, and I maybe want to use that or update it rather than create something from scratch. However, I am deciding that this is this year's data set. So what I would do is change the title to reflect that. I can add it to a work group, which is represents a business area generally. Again, the registry is flexible and can be used for different purposes depending on your organization. So we are going to refresh this page real quick. I talked too long. There we go. All right, we will enter our data set again. We'll find our work group, and then this is the editing page. So as Robin mentioned earlier, you can go in here and review the information that has been recorded against any data asset. You can update it. You can, on different tabs here, you can link other data sets to data sets. And when everything is ready, or if not, you can leave it as a work in progress and save it. If it has been linked, I just want to show real quick what that looks like. So again, we're returning to our distribution, which was linked to 2 other data sets. We have these graphs here, which show, apologies for that, the different data sets and data elements that are linked. And as you can imagine, this can become quite a large visual representation. But depending on how you prefer to see your data, it is recorded here visually, and exactly the same thing is shown on the item page. With that said, I think the final step of IDEAL is leadership. And the leadership is one that touches a bit on every aspect. And the great part about IDEAL is that it's not a top-down thing. It can be implemented at any level of your organization. So whether it's executives putting forward initiatives and looking for different outcomes from their teams and departments, or it's just team leaders or data stewards taking the initiative themselves to just begin recording their data, it can all be done within the registry. Just a really quick to touch on the hierarchy. We've already seen it. I'm just going to point it out a little bit more directly. In the registry, we have these things called stewardship organizations, those generally represent an entire organization. Or if you have a large organization, these could be different departments. Within that, we have work groups, which again can be customized based on your organization hierarchy, but they generally represent the different business areas within an organization. And within the levels of stewardship organizations and work groups, we have the ability for discussions and notifications so that people can really collaborate and work together to elevate the data governance across the organization. So I think that really covers all of the ideal steps. Again, these were just touching on areas that they're connected to within the registry. There's much, much more that can be done. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, but I'm going to pass it back over to Robin. Thanks.
So just what we've talked about today, there should be benefits to your teams and organisation because, as Danielle said, it's a scalable process. You can rely on it being a leadership, top-down process, but if you've got pockets and teams within your organisation that are doing this work, they can lead by example. They can start using the tool, get some of their content in, and start, using it as a centralised tool. So the benefits for your teams, I would say, are that you've got clear, consistent definitions in one trusted place. You've got faster access to reliable data and reduced rework. There's greater confidence in the data through endorsed metadata. And there's less time spent searching, validating, or reconciling the information. There's consistent, for the organisation has consistent use of terms and across for data across business areas. The embedded governance through stewardship, endorsement and audit is there, so it's within the one tool. You don't have to move to another process at all. It's all part and parcel of the process. You've got improved visibility and can be used as a resource rather than something that's difficult to find. And the search capability is quite powerful, so you don't really have to know exactly what you're looking for. Reduced duplication and reuse of existing assets, so that could be a big plus in the organisation's resourcing of data. It's a big investment. And stronger foundation for scalable and data-driven decision making. So hopefully we've sort of discussed a few ways of implementing the ideal methodology into actionable items. A lot of the processes here, you don't have to use the metadata registry. We would argue that it's much better to use the metadata registry for a lot of these things, but there are processes and spreadsheets that you can adopt in getting these things kicked off in your organisation or within your team. The question was, what has been the feedback for product adoption? I think I would like to say that a lot of our clients they're renewing their licenses, so that's a good sign. We have a lot of long-term clients. A lot of the good things about it is it sort of promotes metadata more broadly, and so our clients set up quite a few communities of practice, and they're sharing their information as well. So I'd say that that's one of the real bonuses. It's sort of promoting the metadata, which isn't necessarily a popular topic. So we might wrap it up there. If everybody, feel free to pop in some more questions if you've got them, but like I said, there are other opportunities. We'll be running a few more of these webinars over the next few months, so we'll let you know what our topics are coming up, and thank you for listening to us.